Hey, what's up? I'm in my studio-like space. I'm gonna turn a light off so you can see the wonderful glow. Oh, wrong globe, that one. Does that look cool? Or does that not really look anything at all because I have the other light on? Whatever. But, UV light and fluorescent paint is the best. But for the sake of visibility, I'm gonna put this on. Um, yeah, so I'm working on my thought stream chopper-doos to forward out more information, get it cycling on into the interwebs, into the collective conscious experience. I'm realizing it's super important. I mean, I've always known it's super important, but actually taking the step, there's an incredible gauntlet of self-doubt and reducive, mental arithmetic going on all the time with anything that I pursue. It's quite formulaic as well, and I think progress through that that obstacle is about going through these repeated cycles to acquire a level of pattern recognition where I can actually get a step ahead of the algorithm. Huh? Sorry. I'm just holding this on a tripod. I don't know. Maybe it looks good. Maybe it's a terrible idea. But I like the fact that I can rotate. Yeah, so that means, first step is give up on everything that you think your image is. Throw it in the bin. Get rid of it. Because that is what blocks me from outputting my experience. It's the little pocket where fear is given fuel to exist. Because I always think that, okay, I need to at least contour this experience a bit so it's some kind of digestible format rather than just rants from my head. But the repetition of doing this, as crass as it may come out initially, is the development process. And until I do that, the development doesn't happen. And I've had many experiences in my life that show how repetition evolves the ability into basically a muscle response of doing. Best example of is last. I moved back to Adelaide about a little over a year ago now, I think. Am I right? A little less than a year. But before that, I spent about nearly 6 years in Melbourne, working my butt off in the theatre and entertainment industries, doing mostly lighting. But my real regular job was when I started doing follow spot work in theatre. Started off doing follow spot for a few opera and ballet seasons, and then got on some really long seasons in musicals, doing stuff like Matilda, Book of Mormons, Anything Goes, stuff like that. And that job is all about memory muscle response. It's probably one of the last, like, on the technical side, one of the last truly live parts of theatre now. Because you have to operate that big light cannon with your arms. You've got to pick things up visually on stage and react with your body. There's no automatic controls to be had. Not with the stuff we're using. So like for example, Matilda, like it's pages and pages and pages of complex actions that have to be memorized. But you also have to be responsive to look for changes in position of actors on stage and all this sort of stuff. And this is all in the realms of stuff I just didn't think I could do until all of a sudden I was doing it. And I achieved that through repetition. Now, being a job, you know, I'm in a place where I have the responsibility to turn up and do the job. There's an outside force that draws me into that. Whereas at home, if I'm trying to work on something that is dear to my heart, I am the only motivator, and sometimes that is not sufficient as a you know, in the position of working for someone would be. Because you got to turn up, do the job, and you get paid. Oh, what a reward! It's great. You get to eat and have like a roof over your head. It's a pretty good deal. But the main moral of that is that I proved to myself that that ceaseless repetition gained the skill to the point where it was second nature. Like I didn't think about it, and I could react at levels above purely addressing the list of actions. And when I first start off on a show, it's shocking. I try to make as many mistakes as I can in the first few preview runs, take runs, whatever. Because that's where you got to screw up, and you have to screw up. You have to fuck up to make meaningful moves towards finessing your art form. Now, if I tried to simulate everything I was doing in my head, or if I practiced and never actually did it live on stage, and then, you know, just I wouldn't have had the push to accelerate my learning. I mean, I accelerated my learning because eventually you get to opening night and you have to perform. And so there's this adrenaline of it being consequential that drives you to do better. Now, as much as like it has been difficult, but overall I will not regret moving back to Adelaide to focus on my own projects. But that drive, that adrenaline of responsibility in the eyes of, you know, the public, you know, the greater observer, is not there unless I throw myself personally into it. Now, how do I do that? In theatre, you're in, you know, there's about, what, 2,500 people in that theatre, in Princess Theatre, I think. That's a lot of energy. That's a lot of energy focusing on, not specifically my part, but like the theatre as a whole, the show as a whole, and I am a part of that. This collaborative effort as well going on with everyone involved in it is incredible. So you've got that collaborative work, and you've got that collaborative observation, and that is a lot of energy that drives you to do your best. So the problem with being on your own and trying to drive that same energy is you're the only resource you're drawing from. And for someone like myself that has a lot of personal issues with self-doubt creeping in, that's kind of a nightmare situation. But how do I subvert that? I have to do what I'm doing right now, and I have to throw it into the observable world to receive any energy from it to move forward. And I'm not gonna get that perfect the first try. Just like I couldn't get a single one of my follow spot gigs perfect the first try. Who can? Like, when it's a new show, this is a new show. There's new skills to acquire. These are new skills to acquire. You've got other people with other ideas of what this needs to look like, of every perception viewing the situation is going to have their own expectation of the reality, and that is additive to the whole. So to take that step takes a certain amount of release of any fear, of any doubt. If I had too much fear and doubt in what I was doing in the theatre, I wouldn't have done it. I wouldn't have got past the first tech rehearsal. I certainly wouldn't have got to opening night, and I certainly wouldn't have got 200 shows down the road later, consistently making the show function. And mistakes get made along the way, but you move on and you correct. That's the other thing, is you have to make these mistakes, and you have to let what may seem ideal in your mind come out in crude form, and just try not to cringe and just move through it. I mean, here's another thing. I mean, this will probably end up on YouTube, so look at a lot of people that have made their career out of doing videos on YouTube. You look back to some of their early work, it's not so flash, not so great, but who cares about that? Everyone's watching what you're doing now, where you're at the peak of your art, you know, where you're at the current iteration of what you began many moons ago. So why you can't perfect that in private. You just can't. I certainly can't. So I have to drop this bullshit of thinking that I have to present in some kind of image, and I'm not really someone that presents in a clean image at the best of times anyway. But I get a perfectionist sense of how I want my ideas to be presented, and that's my catch-22, where it's easy to allow that sense of perfection to stop the project as a whole. I've made quite a few videos that I just haven't put up. Like, they've got probably some pretty good intel in them and ideas, but it didn't quite come out how I would have liked it, or how I assess it afterwards. You know, I might make something, think it's alright, then look at it the next day and go, but when you're viewing your own work, you're always going to have that most critical perspective, because you're the one that made it, so you know everything about it. For those that are viewing it outside of your own mind, are having a completely different experience, and they can take it how it is, and that's a good thing. That's a good thing for you. So yeah, this is part of my process of just expanding my experience as a persona and as a conscious participant in the greater intelligence of this universe. It's something that's dear to me, and I couldn't think of a higher importance than to be sharing our experiences and our knowledge with one another. And if I want to see a future like that for humanity, I have to participate in it and lead in places where I haven't seen that yet. I've seen many good examples of things I'm doing. I'm not saying that you know, I'm any original architect of any idea here, but like, to present my own unique perspective, there's only one person that's going to do that. It's going to be me. So if I want to see more of that, if I want to see more open idea sharing, I want to see greater movements of development and technology from, you know, the grassroots experience of humans, then I have to put my shit on the line. You know, I have to put skin in the game. You know, that sort of business. There has to be risk. There has to be personal risk, and that doesn't mean, you know, a material risk or you know, I don't know. It just means a greater risk than what is in the comfort zone of not being in the light of criticism. So, be it my own, be it others, it doesn't matter anymore. Just present, just be. So, yeah, I'll wrap it up there. I'm just gonna try a little bit better every day, maybe, and just put more and more on the line, and then see what happens, and test the physics of reality in that way. Gas and all. Good lord, what's happening inside me? Alright, over and out. Thanks for watching.